Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
So did you see this? The Christian cake makers had to pay the lesbian couple that was refused service $135,000 for emotional distress. Did you catch this, Travis?
I did catch it. I did.
The Oregon Court of Appeals upholds the decision by the state's labor commissioner to force Christian bakers to pay lesbian couple $135,000 for emotional distress for refusing to bake them a cake. Melissa and Aaron Klein made national headlines back in 2013 when they refused to bake a cake for Rachel and Laurel Bowman Cryer, citing their Christian beliefs. The Bowman Cryers complained to the Oregon Bureau of Labor and Industries, saying that they'd been refused service because of their sexual orientation. All right, so I'm going to get into the letter of the law that sort of awarded them the $135,000 and put the Christian bakery in violation of the law, at least according to this, in a second. But just as a matter of principle, do you think that they should have been forced to pay the lesbian couple $135,000 for not baking their cake?
That's tough. I think they should because the law says that they should. So from a legal aspect, I think it was the correct decision based on the law. Do I agree with the law itself? I personally don't. I understand where they're coming from a non-hateful, I don't hate gay people at all, but if it was against my religion and I felt like it was supporting a wedding, then I completely respect their right to not support something like that. But again, it's just my opinion. I don't think it's necessarily,
Why'd they have to get into it? Why could they just say, I don't understand the whole principle of being we don't bake for you people. I don't understand the whole principle of being we're Christian bakers, so we're not going to support your union because we think it'll send us to hell. Why would you get into that? Why would you not just go we can't do it? Is there some sort of dutiful Christian thing to state why you are not doing it? No, it's a sin. Couldn't you just sort of keep yourself to yourself and be oh man, we're all out of flour today? Why did I don't understand it.
It's the arrogance, in my opinion, of making a point. Everybody, everything's for political gain at this point, in my opinion. And so I think, the reason that they do it is because they need to make a statement that, you know what, this is why we don't agree with you, and this is why we do it. Well, I agree with you. I just be oh, you know what, we're all booked up right now. We don't have that kind of availability, but sorry we couldn't help you.
It's an interesting one because I don't freaking... The people that I feel bad for in this situation are, of course, the bakers. Not because they didn't deserve what was coming to them. And look, they could have made it easier for everyone. They could have been oh, yeah, we can't fulfill your order. Sorry. But they had to, in some way, shape, or form, let the lesbian couple know they were being discriminated against. And then this couple who are getting ready to be married, should be the happiest time of their life, went, did they just say that? Oh man, well we have to follow it up now. It puts the lesbian couple in a position of we got to do something about this, and this is supposed to be their freaking wedding day. So I feel bad for the baking couple because I can't imagine coming from a place where you live your life in such a tremendous state of fear to where you think you are going to blow it with God and go to the other place as opposed to the good place when you leave this mortal coil because you baked a cake for the wrong couple. If you operate from that place of he might smote me, I might be smitten, I might be struck down for baking a cake for the wrong couple. What a weird way to go through freaking life.
No, it is. And it's one of those things that it's I'm a real laid-back guy. It takes a whole lot to upset me. I'm not going to lie to you. If I went to a bakery that prided themselves in only baking cakes for gay couples, and I didn't know, and I walked in and I was hey, yeah, I'm getting married, and your cakes are awesome, I would love to have a wedding cake. And they were like, sorry, we don't serve straight people. I'd probably be like, I mean, seriously, I'd probably be like, oh, okay, cool. I'm like, well, your cakes rock, you guys have a great day. And I'd take off. I mean, I'm not, like I say, it's just my personality. I don't care. If somebody doesn't want to serve me because of my hair, because of my attitude, because of anything, then I'll be like, you know what? Cool. You guys take care. I'm out of here. But that's just me.
Dude, I ran into the weirdest situation. And I guess if you're in the know, you know about this sort of thing. I can't remember the name of the hotel, but I was going to hang out with some old friends from high school. Sort of like growing up in England, we don't have real high school reunions. We just sort of have like occasionally it was a really small school. People are scattered all over the country. But, sometimes if you find out like some of your best buddies from high school are all going to be in one city at the same time, you go. So it's not like a real reunion, but some of my friends were in New York City and they're like, hey, come and hang out for a couple days. And I was like, you know what? That sounds great. I'm going to do that. I just have to find a hotel room in New York City now. That sounds like a pricey thing. And the best deal I could find in all of New York City, and I was like, bazinga, this is actually not bad, was in Midtown. And then I went, hold on a second, let me read the fine print here. I don't know if I'm allowed to stay here. Why? Blew my mind.
Real radio.
104.1.
Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So here's the thing. The Oregon Court of Appeals upheld the decision by the state's labor commissioner to force Christian bakers to pay the lesbian couple $135,000 for emotional distress for refusing to bake them a cake. You, of course, heard this story. It made national headlines back in 2013 when they refused to bake a cake for the Rachel and Laurel Bowman Cryer wedding. Now, here's the thing. Travis Golightly, you've said that if you knew that there was a gay bakery, you wouldn't feel comfortable ordering from it? Like, not for a discriminatory reason, but because you feel it's like not for you, or please expound and explain.
No. I would feel comfortable ordering from it. And in fact, if their cakes were amazing, if somebody wants to bake me a cake, I don't care if they're straight, if they're gay, if they're not sure, if they're a little of everything, it's all good with me. I'll eat the cake. But if they don't want to sell to me because I'm not gay, that's fine with me. I'll go somewhere else. I don't care. I mean, it's just one of those things. I'm glad there are people who will stand up, for what they believe in. And there's a lot to be said for that. But me personally, I don't need to challenge the system. If somebody doesn't want to bake me a cake, I'm fine with it. I'll take my business elsewhere. It's no big deal.
Well, I mean, that's the interesting thing about it. Like, why they had to sort of like, jab in the fact that we're not baking a cake for you because you're gay is beyond me. I see that sign in every restaurant that I go into. Like, we reserve the right to refuse service. It doesn't say based on anything. It's just like, hey, this is our business, and if we don't want to serve you, we're not gonna. I'm assuming that sign is generally to deal with drunks or people that come in off the street smelling bad, or people that look like they're gonna cause trouble or something of that nature. But it's your business, and you decide what's good or bad for it, as laid out in technically in the Constitution. But in this case, the letter of the law, and look, I think the right thing happened, because if you tell a lesbian couple, we're not baking a cake for you because you're lesbians, you got to do something. The lesbian couple is sort of morally obligated to be like, hold on a second, that's horrible and discriminatory. Sorry, but we're coming after you for it. Like, I 100% understand why they did that. And I feel bad for the lesbian couple, because it's like all they're trying to do is get married. That's all they want to do. And then, it's not so much, look, when I first learned about the concept of gay from my parents, like, I think there were some friends at the house that it was a gay couple, I think. And I was like, hey, it seems like they're they're holding hands, but they're guys. And, that sort of led to the conversation about what gay was. And like some women and men like the opposite and some like the same. And I was like, oh, all right. And in a further conversation that I had with my father once said that gay people were awesome to hang around. And I was like, okay. And he was like, stay with me on this one. Gay people have had to fight just to be who they are. They've endured all sorts of stuff. And for that reason, the life that they've been forced to lead tends to make them emotionally very strong. And it tends to make them people with excellent senses of humor because they've had to develop them over the years. And it also means that they've got a lot of layers to them. They're very interesting. So I kind of grew up being taught by my dad that gay people were smart, funny, and interesting and strong. And so that was sort of like what informed my belief. But if you're the type of people that, like think you're blowing it with God by baking a cake for a lesbian couple, like, I don't understand why you want to, like I said, stick it in and be like, no, sorry, man. This is sin, and we're standing up and we're taking a stand and we are doing all of the above, and it's because you are lesbians. Because, look, these lesbians, I'm sure, have been discriminated against so many times. It's like my father said, it's part and parcel of what makes them strong and tough and interesting. They've had to deal with this since day one of their lives. But when the baker made it so freaking obvious, it burdened the lesbian couple with, we got to do the right thing and go after them. We're just trying to get married and eat cake. Now, you did that. Now I got to cancel the meeting with a wedding planner. We got to go after some bigots. It's like it burdened the lesbian couple with the task of doing the right thing. It's a weird one.
The reality of it is, you're lucky that you grew up in a situation where you were introduced to the concept of homosexuality in a really innocent way. But I mean, the reality of it is, I grew up in the South, and my parents were not bigots, nor were they hateful. And they were, I grew up in a very Christian household, but I know plenty of people who grew up in households that were not so accepting, and they weren't so positive about, oh, gay people are just different. And it's sad. It's sad that it's that way. But I mean, in a lot of the world, it's not,
yeah, you're right. And whenever it comes to bigotry or any kind of, racism, sexism, any kind of discriminatory practices, any kind of deep held belief that someone is less than, or someone is sinful, or someone is evil because of something like the color of their skin or their sexual orientation or any of the above, like, right. Because like whenever that sort of becomes an issue, my gut reaction is to be like, you're an idiot, shut up, I'm not interested in knowing you. But then you dig a little deeper and you find out how these things happened. And it's just like, well, you were raised in an environment where from a very, very young age, you were taught that gay people were going to go to hell. And if you did anything complicit in their gay relationship, there was a very good chance that you were going to burn in the eternal fires of damnation as well. So you better do the right thing when you encounter gay people. And it's sad. And I guess it's sort of part of why I feel it's sad for the Christian bakers as well. So
it is.
The law that was violated, the law that was violated, an administrative law judge ruled that the Klein's Bakery Sweet Cakes by Melissa violated a law that bans discrimination based on sexual orientation in places that serve the public. Mm-hmm. So it's a law that bans discrimination based on sexual orientation. So, I mean, look, it wouldn't be the most honest thing to do, but if they just went, like I said, we're out of flour today, what would the harm have been in that? You don't have to disclose why you're refusing someone's service. You don't have to trumpet it from the hills that you think you're going to hell by baking lesbians a cake. And it's just, it's stupid. It's really it's a sad state of affairs.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land.
All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Give it up, yeah. Give it up, yeah. Bring this on, come on, come on.
So, I guess the only area where the lesbian cake debacle gets sticky is... We've been discussing it. If you're just joining us, the Oregon Court of Appeals upheld the decision by the state's labor commissioner to force Christian bakers to pay a lesbian couple $135,000 for emotional distress by refusing to bake them a cake. You probably remember this has made national headlines in 2013, and it's been resolved. Now, the letter of the law is that a judge ruled that the bakery, Sweet Cakes by Melissa, violated a law that bans discrimination based on sexual orientation in places that serve the public. And if you're just joining us, you should know that we've been talking about the fact that why do you got to trumpet it? It's your business. You've got the right to refuse service. Why do you have to say something hateful and discriminatory? You're making problems for the couple. You're making problems for yourself. And now you got to pay $135,000. Now their wedding day is ruined. Now it's this whole big thing. If you think you're blowing it with God by making a cake for a lesbian couple, be out of flour that day. Point to the sign that says we refuse the right to I talk professionally for a living. We reserve the right to refuse service. I see that in every single establishment I walk into pretty much, and I've never really given it too much thought. But if you say we're refusing you service based on the fact that you are women that have decided to marry each other, can open worms everywhere. And like I said, I feel kind of bad for when you scratch the surface, when you dig a little deeper, people that are racist, people that are homophobic, people that engage in discriminatory practices. On the one hand, you want to dismiss them as people and say they suck. On the other hand, you dig a little deeper and you find out that a lot of these people have... It's not like they've got no control, because at some point you become an adult and you have your own personal responsibility. But people raised in a heavily religious environment where they've been told that being gay is a sin, and any kind of approval or aiding and abetting that you do of a gay relationship is not only going to send them to hell, it's going to send you to hell as well. If you live in fear of eternal damnation because you baked a lesbian a cake, well, it gets a little deeper and you pull back a layer and you start to understand how these things happen, as unfortunate and as completely wrong as they are. But that, while that all happened, and that is a thing that I think unfolded in a way that it should have, where it gets sticky, where the issue of the lesbian cake gets sticky, is that, it doesn't really feel like the bakers are entitled to the Constitution's promises of religious liberty and free speech, which is, like I said, if Nazis can walk down the street goose-stepping and Zeke Heiling and wearing Klan hoods and all of the above, and that's within their legal rights, I don't really understand how there's not an argument to be made for religious liberty and free speech as laid out in the Constitution. Am I right? I think I'm right.
I think you're right. There is definitely an argument to be made. The question, especially that's so hot in the eyes of the court, is where do you draw the line? It's, and I agree with you. Don't get me wrong. I definitely agree. If you are adamantly believe that, homosexuality is wrong, but you don't hate the people, and there's no hatred in your heart, but you just don't want, you don't want anything to do with it, then do you religiously not have that right?
Well, also, do you I think it's your legal right to hate, this is why freedom is a messy thing, which has terrible aspects to it sometimes, but it's freedom. We've always agreed as a country that freedom is more important than pretty much anything else. And by the way, we're not that freaking free in America. It was pointed out by, what was the comic we always bring up? Oh, frick. Australian guy, Jim Jeffries. He was just like, Americans love to trumpet about how they're freaking free. He's like, in Amsterdam, I can do a line of cocaine off of a hooker's butt and do that in front of a cop and not go to jail. That, my friend, is freedom. What you have is not so much freedom. But freedom is very important to us as Americans, and that's why we allow disgusting hate groups to march through our streets. Freedom doesn't mean free from consequence. It was that guy. What was that? There was that guy in Seattle. Did you see this? The guy in Seattle, he was walking around taking public transport, he had a swastika armband and he was berating black people. And people caught on social media and started taking pictures of this guy and what he was doing in little videos. And there's a video, it's on my blog up at any one of the radio station websites you're listening on. There's a video of this guy who had been harassing public transit customers while wearing a swastika armband in Seattle. And people tracked him down on social media, and there's a video of him getting punched in the face. Was it right to punch him in the face? Does he have the right to walk around wearing a Nazi armband? Yeah, it's a free country. It's not a consequence-free country, and that means if you walk around with a swastika on your arm, there's a good chance you're going to get popped. And that's just it. You moron, what were you thinking, you hateful idiot piece of trash? But at the same time, we live in a country that is supposed to be free, and that includes the freedom to do things like that, as stupid as they may be. So that's where, like I said, the lesbian cake argument gets a scotch sticky.
It's funny because I've had the same exact conversation so many times with somebody, and it really made its appearance when all the anti-Muslim stuff was going down. And like after what was the name of the French magazine, the satirical magazine that published
Charlie Hebdo. Charlie Hebdo. Yep.
So when Charlie Hebdo happened, and don't get me wrong, I'm not in favor of what happened to those people, but it's just like you said. I told somebody else, I said, just because you may have the constitutional right to say something does not mean that you should say something. When it comes down to it, just because I can tell you all day, and I don't hate Muslims, but just because constitutionally I may be allowed to tell you all day how much I hate Muslims and that I can, publish and draw, offensive pictures of their prophet, just because I can, doesn't mean that I should. Does it make the world a better place for me to do that? And the easy answer is no. If you're a bigger person and I walk into Walmart and I see you and I just start making fun of you around your kids for being fat, do I have the right to do it? Well, sure. I mean, you could argue that I do. Does it make the world a better place for me to be a jerk? And I truly don't think it does. So that's, I don't
know. If you're a jerk, that's probably making your world. I find that jerks like being jerks.
They do.
No, you're absolutely right. It's like the guys in open carry states that like to go into a Home Depot with a shotgun because it's their right to do so. And this is, they're just doing what it is their right to do. All right, we've walked to Home Depot with our shotguns. What do you want to do? Well, let's walk down the street and go to Starbucks and let's all enjoy vanilla lattes while sitting there with our firearms. And it's just like, it's the people that abuse that sort of thing that make it hideous and horrendous for all of us. Yeah, a couple bad apples will ruin it for everyone.
It's true. That's exactly what it is.
I almost forgot to tell you my story about the hotel in New York City. Here's the thing. There was sort of like, I went to this really sort of small school in England, and half the kids there were American, half the kids were sort of from all over the world. So there's not that many of us, and we're scattered throughout the globe. So we don't really have like reunions, but occasionally you find out that some of your classmates are going to be in the same spot at the same time. And well, you get together with them. And I got a call a couple of years back from some friends that were in New York City. They're like, come on, let's hang out. And I was like, that sounds like good times to me. Now I'm just faced with the daunting task of finding myself a hotel room in New York City. So I'm hunting around online, and the best deal I can find is for this place in Midtown. I was like, well, this is actually not that bad of a deal. It's like right there near Broadway, near all these attractions. There's the musical theater stuff that I can't stand, but a lot of people seem to really, really like. Not so far away, so maybe that'll be interesting to some of my classmates. I don't know. And I'm just about to like book the hotel and tell my classmates, hey, this is where I'm staying. Let's all try and stay around this area. And I was like, I've never heard of this hotel before, and it might be cheap for a reason. Maybe I should do a bit more research. And I looked on Yelp and I looked on Google at the reviews, and the reviews were fantastic. And the reviews all said something along the lines of, this is one of the best gay hotels I've ever stayed in. I was like,
oh my God.
And I wasn't even aware that there was such a concept. Now, I'm sure straight people are allowed to stay there too, but it was one of those things where I'm like, I don't know if this is for me. And I also don't know. I mean, it's a great deal and everything, but I don't know if I'm welcome in this place. And
yeah, that would be my concern.
And then also, I don't know if it's some sort of like, when you see the word lifestyle in the description of a hotel, whenever I've seen the word lifestyle, it tends to pertain to some form of swinging, like some sort of, like, so I didn't know if by staying there's some sort of expectation that you participate in some sort of activity that I'm not interested in participating in. So it was like that to me, when you talked about a gay bakery, when you talked about a gay bakery, I was like, are there all gay bakeries? And I was like, well, it turns out there is an all gay hotel, so why not? And I don't know if it was all gay. And I'm like, I am treading around this lightly because I don't want to sound small minded and knuckle dragging. But I was just like, I guess I won't stay there. Not because I have a problem staying in a hotel that's filled exclusively with gay people, except for me. But I just don't know. If this is, it's my place, like
it could be an awkward situation for you to show up and them, are they going to think you're mocking them in a sense? And probably not. But every single gay person I've ever known has been the most generous, the most easygoing, laid back people. So, I mean, would they be upset? I highly doubt it. But in the same sense,
yeah.
You don't want to put them in an awkward situation,
Well, also, like, I think the true comedy of the situation would have come from the fact that I would have been telling like people that I hadn't really seen from high school. So like, this is my hotel. Why don't we all try and stay around my hotel? Like, what hotel is this? Oh, we always thought that about you. What, you always thought what about me? Like, what? Nothing. Oh no. So yeah, it was an interesting experience, and my one experience with sort of an all gay business. There you go.
That is funny.
Travis, go lightly. We should perhaps do some news.
We should do the news. Kris Jenner has gone blonde.
I wonder if the carpet matches the drapes, said absolutely no person that wanted to not lose their lunch. Yeah, Kris Jenner, the Kardashian mom, has gone blonde. Because you know what they say, blondes have more fun pimping out their daughters. Go on.
Season 11 of The X-Files premiered last night.
Did you watch?
I did not, and I was an X-Files fan. I wasn't super fan, okay? Like, have I seen all the episodes? No, I'm sure I haven't, but it was a great show. When it was on, and I was on, and the TV was on, if I flipped past it, I'd stop on it.
I never watched it back in the day. Like, when X-Files was a TV show, I was hardcore in a band. That was what I was doing. I was on the road all the time. So it was very hard to keep up with episodic television. This is like pre-Netflix and streaming and all of the above. And I heard everybody talk about it, and I never got a chance to watch it. And whenever I would try and watch it, I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I'm not sure what's happening here. Like, I'm missing a whole bunch of backstory. So I didn't really do it. But then, for some reason, you know what it was? It was when they were rebooting X-Files. And I was like, that actually looks sort of interesting. I should sort of fill in the blanks. And I binge watched all of X-Files on Netflix. Freaking awesome.
Yeah.
It held up so well. It was done so incredibly well. There was nothing really sort of like egregiously, obviously 90s about it. I mean, some of the hairstyles and some of the clothes, sort of, but the only thing that separated it from something that was made yesterday was the fact that a lot of the plot lines focused around things like payphones and answering machines and things like that. And that's the only... Yeah. Or like, I've got to get this tape, this, not a digital recording, nothing like that. Like, we must protect this tape. This tape cannot be destroyed. I'm like, didn't you upload it to the cloud? Oh, wait, it was 1998. So, like,
exactly.
I don't know. But I binge watched the whole thing, and I was hooked, and then I watched both movies, and then I watched the new season, and I'm like, I'm all sorts of excited for the new season, but like, I can't watch it one episode at a time. I gotta wait till they're all available to stream and just binge the whole thing. But
I'm the same way.
Yeah, I think the first episode featured tons of twists and turns from what I'm hearing, and that was just Mulder trying to get out of bed because he's old now. Very, very old. All right.
You walk these streets most every day. You're waiting to get washed away. Radio. 104.1.
Now, more AD on the radio.
Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you my musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me. Back once again, the ill behavior, delivering and giving you a musical savior. Back once again, it's your boy AD, and can't nobody rock a body better than me.
So marijuana is now not only medicinally but also recreationally legal in a bunch of different places. There was Colorado first, and then I think Washington, and is it Oregon as well, Travis?
Oregon is legal, I believe, for recreational. Yeah,
and now California, who had medicinal marijuana as of the 1st of January, it's recreationally legal as well.
I have such simple opinions. I think that people should be able to do whatever they want as long as they do it safely. I think more prescription drugs should be legal without a prescription. I'm not a drug user, but I believe in your freedom to choose. I think if it's legal in Mexico, it should be legal here. That should be the new rule. If it's not legal in Mexico, we definitely shouldn't be messing with it. There's no way. Like, that's a good benchmark. That should be the test, you know? We take the drug to Mexico, and if they go, aye, take it off the shelf. Get rid of it. Take it off. Man. I don't know about that stuff. You heard the man. He said, aye. I want pot to be legal, not because I smoke it, but I'm tired of people making up medical reasons to smoke it. It's just weird. My friend's like, no, I smoke it medically for anxiety. I go, well, how do you know it works? She goes, well, when I don't smoke it, I get angry and anxious. That's called withdrawal. You're a stoner. When you get shaky from not doing meth, it's not because meth is an anti-shake medication. That's not how it works. Pretty sure.
So I think what's really, really interesting is that with recreational pot legalized in California, those who have been convicted in the past for marijuana, quote unquote, crimes are asking what it means for them. Proposition 64, which legalized marijuana, did not apply retroactively to those who have been convicted already for possession, and, well, can open worms everywhere. We'll discuss that a little later on in the show. Right now, though, Travis, go lightly. Let's continue with the news.
Chip and Joanna Gaines from HGTV's Fixer Upper. They are expecting another baby.
Do you ever watch that show?
I've seen it. I hung out with my great aunt a few times, and they absolutely love the show. I could not stomach it.
They're from Texas, aren't they?
Yeah,
they're from Dallas. I gotta tell you, like, I don't watch too many of that shows, but for a while when I wasn't making any money in radio, and I'm still not really making money in radio, but when I wasn't really making enough to buy anything like, you know, that I could eat or, you know, drive around with, or like, I was just so freaking broke for the first however many years I did radio. I flipped a couple of houses in Houston, and I did that because, well, it was a good time to get into it because it was right when the economy freaking tanked, meaning you could buy foreclosed houses in Houston for $1, and I'd never bought anything, so I wasn't leveraged. I didn't have, like, you know, a bunch of money in a house that I was now upside down on. So I was able to buy a couple places and flip it, and I did it basically because I'd seen shows on HGTV. I'm like, everybody's doing this. This seems easy, and it wasn't easy, but it was doable. So I watch. Not so much now because I haven't done it in a little while, and there's really not a market for flips the way there used to be, but I do watch these sort of like house rehabbing shows, and I gotta tell you, like, I guess it's Joanna, the wife, that does all the design stuff. I don't know anything about how to decorate anything. I know how to look at a picture and go, I want it to look like that. But I have to say, her sense of, like, design, I suppose you would call it, is pretty freaking incredible. She makes places look amazing, and there were absolute freaking disastrous, unattractive teardowns before. So, like, I actually do sort of enjoy watching that show, not because I enjoy the sort of antics between the two of them. If you can just show me the before and after pictures of the houses from HGTV's Fixer Upper, featuring Chip and Joanna Gaines, I would be happy, because I think she does a really good job.
She does, and I agree with you. I just don't like them. It's not that I don't like the concept of the show or the quality, and I don't mean like that in a mean way. Yeah. It's just not my style. I don't like the antics. Just like you said, show me the before and after, and I'll enjoy it. But yeah, they annoy me. Most house flipping shows, the couples annoy me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and he does all this sort of stuff that, you know, this wacky out there I guess, comedic stuff. And like, I don't even know if, look, he keeps doing it, which means audiences like it, which is why he keeps doing it. But like, there's probably some producer off camera being like, do something stupid. Okay, good. We got it. Like,
I guarantee it.
Yeah, but Chip and Joanna Gaines from HGTV's Fixer Upper are expecting another baby. Well, good for Chip. Only because he spends so much time knocking stuff down. It's about time he got to knock something up.
All right. Packers quarterback Aaron Rodgers and Danica Patrick were reportedly all over each other recently in a Green Bay restaurant.
Well, that means even in the offseason, Rodgers is still going after a tight end. Go on.
Finalist for this year's NFL Hall of Fame class.
That was cheap, but satisfying. Go on.
I'm glad it was for you. Finalists for this year's NFL Hall of Fame class include Ray Lewis, Terrell Owens, and Randy Moss.
Wow, you really don't like football, do you?
I'm not a big football fan. I like sports. I like to play football. I don't like to watch it.
You know how I know that you're not a big football fan?
Did I mispronounce a name?
Terrell Owens.
Could have sworn it was pronounced Terrell.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know.
I could be wrong.
You know what? Like, have you mispronounced a lot of words in your life? No, stay with me on this one. This is a bit of an off-ramp, but there is a legitimate reason for me asking this question.
Not generally. Generally, I'm pretty good with it. Names are hard. Maybe the issue for Terrell or Terrell Owens, I could have sworn number one is Terrell, but I have a friend named Terrell, and it's spelled the same exact way. So maybe I'm wrong on that one. But no, generally, I'm good with it.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you got a buddy with the same name and it's pronounced Terrell, then, you know, that's completely understandable. The only reason I bring it up is because, like, and I think we've talked about this before on the show, I picked up so many mispronounced words as a kid because I read a lot. I wasn't necessarily a conversationalist. I wasn't out in the world hearing this language used, but I would read it. And like, you read these words over and over again and you get a fixed idea in your mind of how they sound. And then, you know, 10 years later, you blurt out something that is wildly incorrect. Readers pick up a lot of mispronounced words. So that's why I was wondering about it. Yeah. But yeah, Ray Lewis, who continues to be, I guess, a cut above the rest. Go on.
President Trump says Steve Bannon has lost his mind.
You know, going into the show today, this was going to be story A. This is what we were going to talk about because, look, if you have listened to the show for any length of time, ever since Bannon sort of crept onto the scene, you know that I'm of the opinion that we are living through some history right now. Like, in 100 years, college students will be writing term papers on this portion of American history with reference to the political upheaval that's taken place over the last couple of years. They will. And as college students write their term papers on what we're living through right now, 100 years into the future, Clinton, Trump, folks like this will be in there. There'll be footnotes. But I am of the belief that a lot of it's going to have to do with Bannon. But more on that in just a little bit.
Leave the stimulation to the professionals.
Everyone is so smart.
KBRC, more stimulating talk radio.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The Dumbing Up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
So I guess the big question, since pot is now recreationally legal in the state of California, is, well, what are the legal ramifications for people that have been busted for pot in the past? This is the question that's being asked by a lot of folks, including you, me, and guest producer Travis Golightly. We'll get into that a little later on in the show. Right now, though, let's get back to the news.
All right, President Trump, we've already done that one. Steve Bannon and Donald Trump are feuding. It's like Katie versus Taylor.
Yeah, if Katie was a raging alcoholic and Taylor paid more attention to her hair.
Eric Trump has accused Ellen DeGeneres of conspiring against his dad.
He didn't say who Ellen wants to replace him, but I would imagine she's a very big fan of Bush. Conspiring. At what point are you conspiring? Like, if you're Ellen Degeneres and you don't like Donald Trump and you want someone else to be the president, and you say that, and you use your massive amounts of celebrity to get your political message across, which many, many people do, when does it stop being a thing where a famous person has an opinion and start being someone who's conspiring against his dad?
That's a good question. His comments, he believes she's part of the deep state, which I'm not saying does or doesn't exist, but the Republicans believe that, the deep state, the deep inside the government, all the liberals who will never allow a Republican to actually control as they should, he believes she's part of the deep state. And, it's funny, though, because, and I have friends who are liberal, and, I have some liberal views myself, but if you look at, like anytime a liberal campaigns, they have all these celebrities up there with them. And it's just one of those things, it'll always be that way.
So that's kind of interesting. Look, a lot of people have heard the expression deep state, but it's sort of like an Alex Jones-y conspiracy-esque thing for a lot of folks that people know. So, explain that once again. This is the idea for people that don't know that the deep state is, Travis, go lightly.
God, I hate to speak factually. As I understand it, the deep state is the deep within the government, the strong liberals that have made a career of being in government that will always work to derail any action of a Republican. The concept that all these people will constantly be fighting against conservative values and will do anything necessary to get rid of conservatism and conservatives in office is how I understand it.
That's just politics. I don't know if that's necessarily the deep state. That's, what that is? That's today's wackadoo society. That is the Alex Jones conspiracy theorist mentality, looking for a secret society that's been determined to ruin your life. You always felt like they were there, but you never really were able to put a face to it. You never really were able to put your finger on what it was, but you knew it was there. Like, it's just like, that's politics. Democrats don't want Republicans to have power, and Republicans don't want to have Democrats to have power. So, yeah, conspiring. And you're absolutely right. Far and away, the vast majority of celebrities, when they lend their support to politicians, it's to a lefty. Because for whatever reason, a lot of the entertainment business types are lefties. I don't fully understand how that happened.
I don't either.
There will be people that are going to... This is where the tinfoil hat crowd crawls out of the woodworks and goes, because entertainment is really just a subversive thing that's, the Illuminati trying to send us all to hell and poison our minds, blah, blah. It's interesting.
I know.
I've been called out as being part of the liberal media many, many times.
Really?
And being part of a liberal media plot. Like, well, you work at a rock station. This is a liberal media plot. Why would you sort of like use your insipid political views? First and foremost, I don't have insipid political views. Second of all, I never express them on music radio ever. It's just not the place for it. My political views are that left, right, this is all garbage. And this is, just a tool of politicians to pit us against one another, hold on to power, and keep us dumbed down and stupid and knee-jerk reactionaries that are just going to pledge our undying loyalty to them without even thinking. So I don't really have, I guess that is sort of an insipid political view, but it's not taking a side. It's definitely not taking a side. And it amazes me when I get accused on my music radio stations of being a part of the liberal media that's looking to overthrow the government. I'm like... I've been part of the entertainment industry since I was like 16 years old. That was when I started being a professional musician. I got my record deal a little after that. I've been all over the world working with all sorts of people. I was signed to 3 different record labels, a bunch of different production companies. I've worked in television, I've worked in radio, all of it deemed to be the liberal media. And never once did I get a memo being like, this is how we're going to stick it to the right. This is our agenda. This is the plan. Like, it's just like...
You didn't get your deep state starter pack when you first got signed? They did. They're like, hey, it's on the way, okay?
Yeah, the record deal did not come with a deep state starter pack. That's just people wanting to assign. That's dangerous thinking is what that is. All right, what else?
By the way, I sent you an email, actually 2 of them. I'm not one for rubbing it in your face or anything, but I just had this feeling, and I could have sworn that I had known. His name is pronounced Terrell Owens. I'm not an I told you so kind of guy, but I kept thinking that I had been corrected at some point.
I'm looking at what you sent. Oh, this is a tweet from
Terrell Owens.
Yeah. I guess the leading authority on how to pronounce his name.
Some might say that.
He said, as long as you pronounce my name with 1 syllable instead of 2, we're good. It's Terrell, not Terrell. Oh, wow. I'm such an idiot.
No, but
Travis,
you did nail it, and you know I'm not a football fan. So,
Travis, you're clearly not a football fan. You don't know how to pronounce Terrell. Were you a reader? Readers pick up a lot of mispronounced words. Like, what an idiot I sound like now. Oh my!
Not at all. No, not at all.
Okay, all right. So
normally,
no, but like the reason I pronounce it the way I pronounce it is because I've heard millions of people pronounce it exactly that way. And I'm looking at this tweet, and right below it, there's a reply from a sports writer who said, "You've never corrected me, and now I feel ashamed of myself." So there you go. I think it's not just me, and I'm just as big of an idiot as absolutely everybody else in this situation, but I should have dug a little deeper. It's not a real sort of feather in my cap to be as stupid as everybody else, but everybody else has been mispronouncing his name for years. Like I said, this sports writer said, "You've never corrected me, and now I feel ashamed of myself." I've got a buddy. I've got this friend. Have you ever met Adden? Do you know Adden?
I think I know the name. I think I know who you're talking about, but I don't think I've met him.
Adden's this guy who works records. Like, it's his job to come into radio stations and get them played. And he has worked for all these record labels for years and years. And now he works for like Metallica and Muse and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, their management company. But he's been doing this since like the mid-90s. He's been a huge fixture on the radio and record scene since, like I said, the mid-90s. He's beloved by all. Everyone loves Adden. Adden's a great guy. When you're out with Adden, you're going to have a good time. Oh, Adden always takes care of the things that he's got to take care of. Adden's a pleasure to work with. Everybody loves Adden. 25 years of his life. And a couple years ago, maybe like a year and a half ago, he went, guys, my name's actually pronounced Adon. And so, like, he allowed...
Oh, my God.
He allowed, like, the entirety of the music business community to mispronounce his name for 25 years. There was this one kid that I went to high school with, and I would be like, "What's up, Charlie?" He'd be like, "What's up?" And, I'd be like, "Charlie, do you have the science homework?" Or, "Charlie, do you know what time we got to go be there for this thing for PE class?" And Charlie would always go, "Yeah, I think it's 3:00. Sure, I got the science homework. Absolutely." And then I'm hanging out with Charlie one day, and another friend of ours walks up and was like, "Hey, Chris." I'm like, "Huh?" It's like, "Your name's Chris?" And he was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I've been calling you Charlie for the last 2 years. Why'd you let me do that?" He was like, "It's just easier than correcting you."
I have a lot of respect for that. When I worked at the railroad, so like you'd get called for these jobs and you'd always be working with different people. And sometimes you knew them, sometimes you didn't. Sometimes you recognized them, you know, you had seen them in the yard office or whatever, but you didn't always know these people. And so it was really hard to always remember people's names. And I'd always write it on my hands so I knew who I was working with. But there were so many people who would call me the wrong name, and they'd be like, "Hey, Dave, did you grab our paperwork?" And I'd be like, "Oh, yeah. I mean, I just answered to it. Like, I didn't care." And people would call me different names all the time. And then, like, eventually somebody was like, "Why does that guy call you Dave?" And I'm
There's
like,
a whole episode of Seinfeld about this, where, like, this seems at its core a Susie and Elaine problem.
Oh,
like,
my God. Yes, you're exactly right. Yeah, that's been my life, too. I'll answer to whatever. Like, I don't care. I'm not going to correct you. I'll just answer to it. It doesn't matter. And then later, if you're like, "Oh, did I call you the wrong name?" I'm like, "Oh, I don't even know. If I knew you were talking to me, I just answered."
Have you ever read that book? It's that book, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
No, but I hear it's a great book. I'm just not a reader.
It's the whole. Well, that's why you pick up all the mispronounced names of football players like Terrell Owens.
Terrell Owens.
God. But it's basically sort of like, I never read it for years because the title sounds slimy. Like, How to Win Friends and Influence People sounds like, ugh, it's gross.
Yeah, Creeper.
It's a great book. Read it, because it's basically just a couple hundred pages of it's nice to be nice to people. It's all about taking a genuine interest in other human beings and putting yourself second, and realizing that if you really want to be a friend, if you want to be a beloved person, look to your dog. Your dog is like the greatest. That's the true definition of a friend. Be like a friend, because that's all your dog wants to do, is be your friend. Wants to serve you and love you and protect you. Isn't looking for anything out of it. Just wants to be your friend. That's the reward, the friendship. And it's basically a whole book of that. And it's fantastic, and if everybody read it and acted upon it, I genuinely believe the world would be a marginally better place. But one of the chapters is about how important it is to remember and recognize and correctly pronounce people's names, because there's so much wrapped up in a name. So you might not necessarily think that much of it when someone mispronounces your name or calls you something different, but it's a big bone of contention for a lot of people getting their names wrong. It's like a real slap in the face when you don't take the time to recognize that their name is pronounced this way, or even know what their name is. The people that called you Dave.
It's funny because a lot of the times,
the people that called you Dave got off light.
They'll see my last name, which is Golightly, and everybody thinks it's a fake last name, and so it's so funny. Like anytime I pay with a credit card or something, like the cashier will look at it and they're like, "Oh," and it's just this funny thing that I do. They're always like, "Is it Golightly?" And I'm like, "Oh, so close. It's Golightly." And they're like, "Oh, I almost had it." And I'm like, but it is. They pronounce it's just like it sounds. It's just like it looks. It's Golightly, and so it's so funny. Like I always just love to mess with people.
When I first met you, I didn't think your real name. I didn't think Golightly was your real name, because like
I know
everybody on the air called you Travis Golightly. And because of that, I thought it was sort of like a radio name, because Golightly is a little unusual. It's not Smith or anything of that nature. It's not pedestrian. And so when I found out your name was actually Golightly, I thought it was really, really interesting.
Yeah, I had people ask me all the time. I wanted to use a fake name because I was from Houston.
What's the origin of Golightly? Is that English? What is that?
Oh my God, you're good. Most people think American Indian, which I am American Indian, but on my mother's side, most people think it's American Indian. It's actually Welsh.
It's
I come
Welsh.
from a family. On my father's side, I come from a family of Welsh coal miners.
Travis Golightly. That's how they'd pronounce your name in Wales. Well, Travis Golightly, your name is so fascinating. We spent the remainder of the show talking about it. We don't have time to talk about recreational pot being legalized and the legal implications of that for people that have been popped for pot in the past, but maybe we'll do that next time. Thank you so much.
All right, good night.